if you're really not a fan of the Russian piping tips, or you just can't get to grips with them, I'm going to show you how you can hand pipe the tulips straight onto your cupcake. It's really easy, really effective, and they come out just the same. So the piping tips I'm going to use, for the centre stamen, I've got a number 3 round piping tip with some green buttercream. Obviously you can use any colour you like for them. I had green already loaded up, but if you want to use white or yellow, totally up to you. But you want that small number 3 round piping tip. For the first row of petals, I've got an Atiko 61. It's a small crescent shape piping tip. And then for the outer petals, I've got an Atiko 120. It's the same shape, just a little bit bigger, that crescent shape, to create these outer petals. For the leaves, I've got the 352 leaf tip. And then if you've got any gaps that you want to fill in between your flowers, I've just got a number 2 round piping tip here that I've already got loaded up with some white buttercream that you can use to fill the gaps. If you haven't got this tiny little round, you can just snip a little bit off the end of a piping bag and it works just perfectly fine. So I've crumb coated my cupcake with green buttercream, and I've just got a number 12 round piping tip here. I'm going to use the base of it just to mark out some rough circles as a guide. So I'm just going to start in the middle. Oops. I'm going to place that in the middle of the cake and just make my center circle, and then I want 6 around the edge. So I'm just going to put one either end of that, and then 2 spaced out evenly in the middle here. And that's just a rough guide, so you've got your center of each flower and you can space them out perfectly. Okay. Now I'm going to take up the number 3 round, and I'll just do the center one first on its own to show you how to do it. So I'm going to come down in the center of my circle, squeeze, lift, stop and come off to create some center stamen. These look really nice when they're done in just plain buttercream with your colour around the edge. But I've had green loaded up all day, so I'm using green. So you put your centre stamen in. They don't have to be super neat or fantastic. They're about 1 centimetre high, and I've just put a small cluster in like that. Then take up your 61, push all your buttercream down to the bottom of the bag, make sure it's nice and tight. I normally have a bit more buttercream on my bag here so that my hand's out of the way. I'm going to touch down on the cupcake, straight down next to my stamen as close as I can. And then I'm going to touch, squeeze, lift, stop, come off. I was trying to do that slowly so my buttercream broke. So I'm just going to come next to the stamen, touch, squeeze, lift, stop, come off. Round again, touch them in. Touch, squeeze, lift, stop, come off. So you've put your centre petals around your stamen. And then for the outer edge, I've got my 120, so make sure your bag's nice and tight, your buttercream's down to the bottom, You want this crescent on the inside, so it's curving around the flower. And I'm going to come around the gap. So where there's a gap between the first two petals, I'm going to come round in between that gap. So I'm just going to touch down on the cupcake, squeeze, lift, stop, come off. Turn the cake, put the other one here, and again, touch, squeeze, lift, come off. So there's your first tulip. And now I'm just going to do them all at once. So I've got my markers on my cupcake. So in the center of each little circle, I'm going to touch down and put a few stamen in the middle of each one. Okay, and then take your 61, nice tight bag, and I'm going to put 3 petals around the edge of each of the stamen. So touch down, squeeze, lift, stop, come off, turn the cake. Always turn the cake so that your piping hand is in the right place for you. You can see I'm making these a bit taller than the stamen. You can see how quick it is when you do them all together like this. It doesn't take very long to do each one. I haven't quite got enough buttercream in my bag here, so I'm having to hold it differently to keep my hand out of the way. You don't want to squash the petals you've already put on. So there's my first row of petals. Now take up, I'm just going to clean off my piping tip. There's a bit of buttercream on there. And then the same again, I'm going to come in between those petals on the outside. You obviously want to be mindful of your flowers as you put your piping tip down in the middle. So come directly above them so you can see what you're doing. Touch, squeeze, lift, come off, and go around all of your tulips, putting your next row of petals on. Make sure your bag's nice and tight. And the last one. There's my tulips on the cupcake. Now I'm going to put some leaves on. So now I've got the 352 leaf tip. This is known as the bird's beak. The buttercream oozes out the side of that V to create the pointy leaf shape. So make sure your bag's nice and tight and that you've got that point in the center so you know where you're putting your leaves at the angle you want them. So then I'm going to come round in between each gap and fill that with leaves. You might need to have 2 leaves to fill the gap. Pop in whatever you need. And then come into the center. And turn the cake so that you've got your leaves coming at all different angles and fill in all the gaps. And then if you've got gaps between your leaves, quite a nice way to fill them in is with little white dots. It just looks like little blossoms in between the tulips. So I've got here bag, I already had it loaded up. You could use a number 3 round. I've got a number 2 round in here. And I've just got some white or plain buttercream. Want it nice and soft. And then in any gaps, I'm just going to put the piping tip to the cake or the buttercream, whichever you can reach, and pop a little white dot of buttercream. And they're a really lovely way to fill in any gaps. Gives a little bit of added prettiness. So if you can't poke your piping tip all the way in, just touch down on any buttercream that you can and it will stick to it. So anywhere you think needs to be hidden, pop a little dot, and there you go. There's some really pretty tulips without having to use Russian piping tips.